I just want to say congratulations on the movie. And I really can't believe this is your first feature after being a DP for so long.
Yeah. Well, I've been directing for quite a long time, for the past 10 years. And so, have had experience on set as a director. I was part of the first season of Ozark, and George Clooney asked me to do Catch 22. So, it was great to be able to be, though, on a set, which was, um, a lot of women, which was great. And also, to be able to shape it from the beginning to the end. And that, I think, is really important. We were able to, you know, take the vision of the film and shape it with the production design, the wardrobe, sound, and, everything in post. So oftentimes, if you're just a cinematographer, you only have one voice in the film. But, as a director, it's really great to bring all the voices together to be able to orchestrate, what the film is going to be. And Kate was really important partner in that, because um, she was a producer, and she was the person who, thought of doing this project, and who came to me to ask me if I would direct it.
I have to say, so whose idea was it to cast the guy from Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Pop Star to play
Well,
David?
Well, I mean, it's amazing because we talked extensively about who could be Davy Sherman, her sidekick, who goes off to war, who has, a sense of humor and who's cheeky at times, and but who could also be seriously affected by what was in front of him and what he saw in the war. And we talked a lot about, who that could be. And it was Marion Hume, who was one of the writers on the film, who said out of the box, what about Andy Samberg? And all of us were like, Andy Samberg, wow, what a great idea. And so, which was very unusual, Andy Samberg allowed us to audition him. He offered to do an audition, which is really unusual, for an A-list actor to say, oh no, I'll be an audition. And it was profoundly moving. Kate and I were on the call, and we both just like, oh my God, and it was Kate who said to him, the only thing I'm going to say is, stop doing that with your face. Just don't worry, let it come from here, which is the thing that Andy did. As a comedian, a lot of what happens is on your face. But Andy, to his great credit and to his great range as an actor and as a person, allowed everything to come from his heart. I mean, you really feel it. Andy carries a lot of the emotional part of the story, towards the end when they're in war. And it was greatly affecting. I mean, every time I see that scene with Andy, I'm affected by it. When we were shooting it on set, I had tears running down my face with my headphones on. And so, it was a real brilliant tour de force. And I have to give Andy a lot of credit for his brilliant performance.
Well, I'm a huge fan of his. Like just to be clear, so I'm fascinated by the editing process because it's where it all comes together. So what was it like after you did your first friends and family screening or test screening? And like how did the film possibly get impacted?
Well, we were really fortunate to have Mikkel E.G. Nielsen come on board as our editor. And, I had come across Mikkel's work, who he was not very well known. He had done, a couple of films that, well, he had been working in the commercial world and then working as a feature editor, but he wasn't really well known to the world. And I happened to come across something that he did, that he took a rough cut and made it into the film, the movie. And I said to Kate, I there's this editor who I think is really quite talented. He's got something. He understands story and metaphor. And she said, well, let's interview him. So I interviewed him, and I knew that he would be a great person for this. We had an hour-long conversation about the film and about Lee Miller. So when we got into the editing room, the thing about Mikkel is that he was very sensitive to her story already. And he and I talked about how to put it together. You always have an editor's cut, and then we reshape that. And it was very interesting because we knew that, there were certain scenes that we were going to have to lose because, we didn't want to make the film longer than 2 hours. You know, 2 hours and 10 minutes, we felt like it's too long. We really wanted to keep it down. So it was about being able to choose those essential moments with Lee that would, enable us to understand her relationships, with Audrey Withers, with with David D. Sherman, so it's basically distilling down as much as we can, what the story is going to be, as well as, so what are the sound effects? I'm a believer that every single element is there for meaning. It's just not arbitrary. So the sound effects and how they work also bear upon what the film is. So in the very beginning of the film, when we open up with Lee running through the battlefield, wanted the sound of the battle to be backgrounded so that we hear her heartbeat. So it establishes right at the beginning that here we are, we're in the film. The point of view of this film is that we're with her. We hear her breathing, we hear her heartbeat, and that's what carries us through.
Her story is so incredible, and I'm just wondering, do you think that? And again, I'm just presenting this. But do you think if she had been a man, this story would have been told sooner? Do you think there's that element to it, or not at all?
It's really hard to say whether this story would have been told sooner if she was a man. I think that people have tried to tell the story sooner, and Anthony Penrose, who's Lee Miller's son, would talk about that and talk about how many people would come to her, would come to him and ask for the rights to her story. Uh, I think and the reason why he rejected them was because he knew that they weren't getting the essence of his mother. Oftentimes they wanted to just see her, as someone who was crushed by the war and a broken woman, instead of seeing, what really created her as a person and what the cost of that war was, the cost of trying to get the truth out. But if she was a man, whether it would have been told earlier, I'm not really sure. It's hard to say because, how people tell stories is as important as the story itself.
No, you're 100% right. I'm already out of time. I'm just going to say you did great work with this, and I'm so happy you guys made the film.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time.
Of course. Have a fantastic day. Thank you so much.
Okay, ciao.